Thank you, Dr. Dale, and everyone. A very good evening to you. I don't need to introduce myself in order to save time. I will just begin with introducing to you where this term of Islam comes to. Islam means peace, peaceful submission and obedience to God. So these are names and descriptions of the religion revealed by God to Adam and continuously conveyed by all the prophets and confirmed by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the seal of the prophets. Now, accurately, it cannot be known as a religion because the Quran doesn't use the term religion. The Quran uses the term ad-din because this is usually translated as the religion in English, right? But more accurately, it should be a total way of life. Not your way, not Frank Sinatra way, not my way, but his way. I mean God's way. So a Muslim regard his or her entire life as an act of religious worship. Islam provides guidance in not only matters of worship, but how Muslims are to conduct their affairs in daily life, be it in social, political and economic. So this is where sometimes you will find the problems arise. If they fail to understand the social aspect of what is being taught in the religion, especially in modern world, the political and the economic. This is where you have terrorism and so on and so forth. Because they fail to understand the way of life chosen by God, not the way they choose. If the way they choose, and that's where you're going to have a lot of problems. Now, Muslim literally, it means one who submits and obeys to God's command willingly, surrendering to the will of God. So the word is used as willingly. There is no compulsion. It's based on if I love you, I obey whatever you command me. Don't you think so? It's based on a free will. That's why you need to have the understanding. So it refers to a followers of Islam, which now numbers, which is more than that, more than 1.2 billion, diverse race and nationality. And of course, it is wrong and offensive to refer to Muslims by the terms as Muhammadan or Musallaman or any other names. Now, here comes the word Allah. Again, the name of a God in Arabic, it refers to the one and only God of the universe. It is a pronoun. In Arabic, it is a proper noun, It's a proper noun, the name which has no equivalent in other non-Semitic language. So Allah is the unique, the absolute one, having no partners, creators, sustainers of the universe. Those are the names of Allah. You can call them by those names. This is our basic stand, as the Quran tells us, that we believe in Him and that which has been revealed to us and that which has also been sent down on Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob and the tribes, and that which was given to Moses, Jesus and prophets of their Lord. And God said, we make no division between any of them, and to Him we surrender as Muslims. The Quran, chapter 2, verse 135. Now these are the prophets. I think similar if you look into the Bible. The difference is here, where you have Ishmael, which is not been mentioned in all other sacred books, except the Quran, because Muhammad came from that downline, I suppose. Now, Tawhid, or attestations of the oneness of God, that is just to say, La ilaha illallah, there is no God but Allah. And this is the Quran confirmed of this attestation that Allah says, Qul huwallahu ahad, say that He is Allah, the absolute one, Allahu Samad. Allah is He, the absolute and eternal, who is the most besought of all. Lam yalid, He beget not, walam yulad, nor was he begotten, walam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad, and there is none comparable unto him. Now, confessing, or rather just stating that you just believe in God alone, it doesn't work. It has these three components, or rather these three aspects. That is, you have conviction. Faith must be with conviction. To prove that conviction is where the practice comes in. That's where we call it amal. And what you need to always remember is just be sincere in whatever that you're doing. These are the three of what is required for Muslims to always remember. I will go quickly so that I give you more time for Q&A. Because after this, I need to show you what does Ramadan, what is inside Ramadan. So basically, this is what the belief is, or rather the article of faith, that we believe in God, in His angels, in His books, not just one book, 4 books according to the Quran. We believe in the Bible, we believe in Torah, we believe in Psalms that was given to David. We believe all the prophets, as you can see just now, the name. Approximately, according to Muhammad, peace be upon him, there's about 124,000 prophets that has been sent to mankind. Adam being the first, Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the seed. Not all names are mentioned, because otherwise the Quran cannot be 114 chapters. There's only 25 mentioned in the Quran. The rest are coming from the Prophet himself. I mean, Muhammad was the one that tell us. Now, this is the practice of what the Muslim does. First, the declaration of faith. Then the 5 obligatory prayers. And the zakat, the tax. This is actually meant for the poor. Unfortunately, this has been corrupted in the modern time, and that's why you have more poorer Muslims than anyone else. Every month, unfortunately, in Ramadan, you can hear a lot of people craving, or rather looking for donors, because this system has been, I would say, corrupted, adulterated, unfortunately. Otherwise, you don't have poor people like me. And then, of course, the fasting, and lastly, the pillars, the pilgrimage. Now, ihsan here, this is the beautiful aspect of all the other topic that I mentioned, where you need to be sincere in whatever that you're doing, that you worship God as though you see Him. If you see Him not, certainly He sees you. It's like Dr. Dale, if he's not around, you have to feel that He's present, right? You know that He's always got eyes everywhere. Then the source of this Islamic teaching, it is taken from these 2 books. The Quran, of course, as we know, is the book revealed to Muhammad over a period of 23 years. And the term Quran is an Arabic word which means recitation. It is also taken from the word qara'a in Arabic. Qara'a means read. So Quran is a recitation, and it's literally the words of God, completed and preserved entirely in original Arabic. Now the Sunnah is the way. The ways, because if you were to be given book, I'm sure that you will want to interpret in your ideas, isn't it? So it has to be preserved. It has to be one way. Cannot be too many ways. There must be rules pertaining to whoever is going to touch this book. It not necessarily that person have to be a Muslim, but whoever wants to touch on this book, they must know the rules of how to interact with this sacred book. Okay? And then the Sunnah is, again, this is the only way that you are able to know. You can't understand. Not every one of us is like Dr. Dale and your respected self. Your name, sir?
Jeff.
Yeah. So not all of us are like your respected self, isn't it? Dr. Dale and Dr. Jeff, I think it's impossible that if everyone can be like you. So we need to know, who is this Dr. Jeff? You know, you are the one that exemplified what is being sent by God through his prophet. You know, in other words, Prophet Muhammad represents the blueprint of the Quran. He shows us in his day-to-day. Otherwise, you know, I want to interpret the prayer in my own way. And this, even after, despite of having all these guidelines, still we have Shiite and Sunnis. You can see, without, I don't know what will happen then, you know. So we have the Quran, the Sunnah. Below this is where we have this al-aqaid, the theology. This is where you have the form of devotion. As I mentioned just now, that prayer cannot be done as the way you think that you like it. You know, your style, in other words. The devotion has to be in accordance with the rules that has been set. And then the social relation, as I mentioned earlier, that failing to understand this will create a lot of problems. About this, I think you know, the current one that is very hot here in Singapore is the donning of the headgear. It become an issue. So Muslim needs to expose to this so that they will know, if you're in the minority society, it is very difficult to be able to apply the legal system of Islam. You can explain, you can make others understand, but it boils back again to the politician as to whether they agree to your views or not. But nevertheless, individually the Muslims are to know this. Then so this Sharia is a very comprehensive way. It's a system created by God that it encompasses every of these aspects. You have the inheritance law, who takes the money, and then you have the judiciary, then you have the criminal law, and then you also have the leadership and government and strife. A lot of people misunderstood this word jihad here. I mean, you are doing jihad with Dr. Jeff, don't you? Are you married, sir?
Yeah.
Are you not doing jihad? Look at that beautiful students. She's beautiful, right?
I looked. I'm not.
I mean, that is what jihad is all about. It's a strife. It's a struggle, you know, for you to just be decent, or in other words, just behave yourself. So that's wrongly been understood by many society as striving in waging in a holy war. It is not what it is actually. All of us are doing our own jihad in our own way. Now Islam promotes universal brotherhood of men, as mentioned here in the Quran. O mankind, behold, we have created you all out of a male and female, and have made you into nations, tribes, so that you might come to know one another. Verily, the noblest of you in the sight of God is the one who is most deeply conscious of him. God is all-knowing and all-aware. Now, the Islamic etiquettes, the greeting from one Muslim to another usually will be as, maybe I missed just, did I say Assalamu alaikum to all of you? Is it? Oh, okay. So basically, when we meet, this is what we say. Of course, this is the social aspect. This is where, in a society, especially in Singapore, the majority Muslims here are the Malays. They are kind of like personalized Islam, unfortunately. So you'll find that if Dr. Jeff were to say Assalamu alaikum to that brother behind, I think he will look at you and say, who do you think you are? This is the problem, the mentality, you know. I mean, they need to understand that. First, the other thing is due to, because of Singapore at one time, they were very close among the Muslims, you know. They did not understood the other aspect, that the religion doesn't belong to us. Islam doesn't belong to the Muslim. Islam belongs to God. So it's meant for everyone. It's for everyone. I mean, it's up to that individual. If you want to be a Muslim, then you have to know what Islam is all about. The saddest part is the modern times here is not many Muslims understand Islam. That's why the term given in English as Muslim by birth. There is no such thing as Muslim by birth. You were born, I mean, based on psychologically, of course, based on your biological parents, how you were raised, and you follow, whatever religion that your parents submitted to. Not necessarily that you have. It's just a genealogy thing, something that is okay. And the reply will be wa alaikumus salam wa rahmatullah. May peace be upon you too. May peace and blessing of God be upon you. As you know that again, in Singapore context and many other countries, shaking hands is only between person of the same gender, like male with male, female with female. The exception applies to family members with whom marriage is not permissible. Like my auntie, I cannot marry my auntie, right? So it's okay to be shaking hands with her. But it is not what you think. I mean, even it is mentioned here. But in terms of like, if this is the first time I met this doctor, I forgot your name, doctor?
Robin.
Okay. Sorry. 3 years ago I was here, so I can't remember everybody. Even Swami just now, I was like, which one is Swami? He was seated here. So there is an exception applies to family members with whom marriage is not permissible, or with very old people. In psychology, they said that it's all within the mind. You can't be, refusing to say that it doesn't affect you when you are in contact with the opposite gender. There is a research done here by an American Muslim pertaining to that. I'm not going into that detail, otherwise I can't finish. The personal hygiene, Muslims are commanded to maintain a high standard of hygiene. There are things that are categorized as filthy, and when a Muslim comes into contact with them, he or she will have to clean themselves. An example of the types of these bodily waste, such as urine, excrement, bodily discharge such as blood, pus, and vomit. They need just to wash, that's all. No issue of if there is no water, there are other ways of doing it. Islam also have another set of rules, which is looking into the dispensation at times of adversity. What will happen then? If there is no water, after urine you cannot wash, what are you going to do? These are, I'm not going into all those things, but just to share with you. And Muslims also are commanded to maintain a high standard of hygiene. There are things that are categorized as pretty the same thing about pork and dog saliva. This is again already been proven by science. It's basically about hygiene, full stop. It's not about dirty or whatsoever. No, it's about hygiene. For the meat, that is only one, and this is not something that is new. If you have studied about religion, it is also mentioned in other religion too, about swine. Sorry. And Muslims only eat and drink what is deemed lawful, in Arabic normally halal, and avoid things which are classified as haram or forbidden. Same thing. Animal not slaughtered in the Islamic way. Basically, of course, there is a way on how we slaughter our, I think Australian is the best. In fact, they have imposed so many of these slaughtering ruling here in Singapore. Quite recently, about the sheep, how, they want a very hygienic way of how it's been done. Of course, intoxicant and any drug abuse, these are all categorized under something that is forbidden. and amphibious creatures, and animals with fangs and talons. Now, there are differences of opinion there about the last part among the scholars. The dress code for Muslims have to conform to the dress code of modesty and purity. Not necessarily you have to wear this. This is for men, decent dressing. The area between the navel and the knees must not be exposed. That is the guideline given. And for the ladies, for the Muslim women, other than the husband, children who have not reached puberty and family members whose marriage is not permissible, she is required to cover her body except for her face and her hands. Like what you saw. The common dress code here. Now this is again being fashionable, it's permissible. The issue here, when they start wrapping themselves, they are not being fashionable. And they find they are out of place, unfortunately. They are allowed to be fashionable. As long as within what is permissible over here. And the dress must be free of any impurities. Muslims have to perform the 5 daily prayers. These are, I think, some of the name of the prayers. This is specifically mentioned in the Quran, the guideline. They start at dawn, then after that during lunch. So this is where no issue, if you're talking about in modern society, that Muslims are able to perform all these things. I think yes, isn't it? Because you can see that the noon prayer is during lunchtime. And I mean, in some companies, you can even do the late afternoon prayer, that which is normally during tea or coffee break, I suppose. And normally it takes about 5 to 10 minutes to perform the prayer. And of course the sunset prayer, which I think in Ramadan that will be the happiest time for them, because to break our fast. And lastly, the night prayer. And of course, every Friday, Muslims men have to perform they call it Jum'ah, which is the noon prayer in congregation in mosques. The difference is only because Friday is considered as it's a new year, where Adam was born on Friday, the world was created on Friday, and so on and so forth. So Friday Muslims will do a congregation and there will be a sermon given. Basically, it's a meeting at the national level, in other words, or rather at the constitutional level, so that you need to reach out to the Muslims to tell them, okay, this is what you have to do. There are some changes, some legal things, and blah, 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 blah. This is the purpose of why they have the Friday prayer. Then Ramadan, as you know, it's an every year thing. Muslims have to observe daily fasting. They abstain from food, drinking, conjugal relation with their wife from dawn until sunset. We are lucky. If it's during early days, totally you are not allowed. For the whole month, in fact. So in fact, the coming of Muhammad, peace be upon him, it's a blessing, that this is being reviewed. Then Muslims are strictly monotheistic. Although Muslims respect the rights of others to their faith, Muslims are required to guard themselves from being involved in any act of shirk. Shirk means ascribing partners to God. That is an Arabic word. Rights of worship of other religion, or being involved or seen as condoning act of ascribing partners to God. This is not allowed. Which means that if I have a non-Muslim friend, if he pass away, I can visit them, no issue. But believe me, even more Singaporeans are still very skeptical about this. They normally come to me and say, can I go to the church? My Christian friend passed away. What's the problem? Go. He's a human being. You see, you still have that kind of mentality, that kind of mindset that most majority of the Muslims are, they are not too sure as to whether can they or can. Now, Muslim detest every shameful, immoral deed or action as put forth in the Holy Quran and stipulated in the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And Muslim cannot dictate their life, their values be adhered to by non-Muslim. because we respect the rights of others to adhere to their own religious standards. However, Muslims must encourage non-Muslims to understand their aversion to be involved in functions where there exists the possibility that Islamic prohibitions may or will be encountered. In other words, that if you divert this launch and there are things that is forbidden in Islam, I will not be here. Something like that. I'm just giving an example. And Muslims are always mindful when it comes to eating. Food served or catered by non-Muslims should be certified lawful. Now this is actually a new phenomena. It's best for them to know what is lawful, not just based on the papers. Someone can just copy that papers. There will be an issue there. But they should know what does lawful that means. And then cultures use must also adhere to the lawful standard. There are differences of opinion here. The modern scholars, the one is very much alive, Professor Yusuf Qaradawi mentioned that as long as it has been cleansed, it's fine. Like if Dr. Jeff were to invite me to your house, don't go and buy a new pot cultures. It's something that is imposing difficulties to others. It's enough if you have washed and you serve me with a lawful food, I will eat, no issue. This is the issue that if you do not understand, then it becomes an issue. How could you be asking Dr. Jeff to present a halal certificate? It's your house, It's not a restaurant. So therefore, it is best to use either disposable, which is now been practiced, but then another issue arises, remember? About chemical and this and that. Now, guideline for if you want to be visiting the mosque. I think in Singapore we have the National Mosque, the Sultan Mosque. You can visit. It's not that all other mosques is not open. The problem is they don't have much of the English-speaking people to be able to explain. And then, there are certain things that you need to observe, like this one here. You have to have permission. If you're a non-Muslim, if you want to be entering the mosque, and you must be in a properly attired. Anything for men, anything that above the knees is not allowed. I mean, in the National Mosque, they'll give you the robe. Unfortunately, it looks very funny. But that is the rule set by God. And you must remove footwear before entering and to observe strict cleanliness in it. To observe, respect, and maintain silence has not to distract worshippers, because there are people maybe reading Quran or, mosques is like it's like in hospital. You need to be peace. You need to just speak yourself, speak to God, and obey any other condition which the mosque may have. Things that you are to take note. Although Muslims are taught to be hospitable, permission must be sought before entering. I think it's the same in some societies, isn't it? You cannot just, I come to your house and I go to the kitchen and take whatever I like. Is that okay, Dr. Jeff? No? Right. So it's the same here, right? So you need to sought permission. I mean, especially for the ladies, they are very particular of not allowing you to enter their bedroom. It's their privacy. You need to seek permission. And sometimes male and female are located different meeting areas. Sometimes you can see them. And it is polite to reciprocate hospitality shown. Preferably try to avoid visiting just after sunset prayer, because they could be doing prayer, if you come at that time. Now, Eid al-Fitr, we're going to be shortly celebrating this. It's a celebration signifying the end of the 1 month Ramadan fasting, marked with prayer and visitation among Muslims. Muslims may have an open house to all friends and acquaintances. Now, not necessarily the same in other parts of the world. please remember, Islam in Singapore and Islam in Australia is two different people. I'm talking from the social aspect. The religious aspect, nothing changed. The social aspect, maybe there is some change. Then we have Eid al-Adha, that is normally another important celebration. The theme is sacrifice. Adha is in Arabic what means sacrificial. Apart from prayer, Muslims will carry out slaughtering of sheep and distribute the meat to the poor and needy. Not anymore here in Singapore, because the Australian government says no, they are not going to provide sheep. So we have problems. Last year we had problems, And then we have the New Year. This is the Islamic New Year. This is the Muslim New Year. But in Singapore, it is not a holiday. It used to be, not anymore. Muslims commemorate this with functions, lectures in mosques. Okay, that's about all about this. Let me go into Ramadan, or you want to start with Q&A, please? Which is which? Dr. Dale? Because Ramadan 1 is not really that long.
Okay. I think do that, then we have the question.
Okay, sir. Now this is done in the National Mosque, as you can see there. It's a National Mosque where we use this light to welcome tourists when they come to the mosque for visitation. And we share a little bit about what Ramadan is all about. Same thing, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is the verse that is read by every Muslims when they are doing their prayer, or when they are doing anything that is good, like even taking exam, they will start with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which means in the name of Allah, the most gracious and the most merciful. And of course, Assalamu alaikum, as you already know. Now the word Ramadan is an Arabic word. Its root word is from the word ar-Ramat, which means dryness and heat. Normally you will find that it is heat. It is very intense heat during Ramadan. So Jews, Muslims, Hindu, as well as Chinese, fasting is not a new thing again to many religions. It's not a new thing. Other religions also they do have fastings, and as you can see that all use a lunar calendar as opposed to a solar calendar in the calculation. So Ramadan begins with the sighting of the new moon in the 9th month of the lunar calendar in the Islamic calendar. Example of this new moon. I mean, in Singapore, unfortunately, it is confirmed. 4 countries, in fact, not only Singapore, Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, they decided to use the calculation system, because it's difficult to fix on holidays and stuff like that. Sometimes you see the moon, sometimes you don't. So it's going to be a problem, isn't it? I think for the modern people, they are very particular about knowing the time as to fix the holidays. So in Singapore, Brunei, they use the calculation. They calculate. So the month is now what is the significant? One of the significant is the Quran was revealed, according to historians, by Angel Gabriel to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and fasting inside one of the other components. In fasting is where there's a lot of repentance, increased prayer, increased charity. And every good action spiritually are multiplied. Fasting begins at the break of dawn and ends at sunset. What do you gain from the physical aspect of fasting is, or rather what should be done from the physical aspect is to refrain from food, drink, intimacy during fasting hours, which is from dawn to dusk. Depending on the location and season, it can vary to 12 to 17 hours, depends on like certain parts of Australia, it's not the same. What does it does to the spiritual? That it refrains from blameworthy thoughts and acts like foul language, vain talk, hurtful behavior. In other words, the month where you learn to master yourself. And who should fast? All Muslims except for children. So they are still with an exceptional also. I mean, children, we train them normally in Singapore context at the age of 10. Of course, none of them can complete the whole day. Half a day they'll start saying, oh, I can't take it anymore. So we train them. And those who are medically unfit, of course, God will not punish you if you're sick. For goodness sake. So if you're unfit, you don't have to fast. And the mentally or physically challenged people, they also are being excused. And those who are traveling a long distance, if you're traveling, and women who are menstruating and in post-childbirth care, pregnant and breastfeeding. These are the one they are optional, meaning like they don't have to fast, but the primary objective of fasting is to attain God consciousness. Based on the command of the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam kama kutiba alal ladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. The word la'allakum tattaqun here is to gain God consciousness and self-discipline. The spiritual objective, it normally will help Muslims draw closer to God, increase in faith, sincerity, humility, and humbleness, helps to improve one's character, train the person to do praiseworthy acts such as charity, kindness, generosity, patience, and forgiveness. Psychologically, effect includes a lowering of the blood sugar. It's very good for diabetic patients to be fasting. But this one is upon the advice of the medical doctor. They will give you something to do as a medication to suppress the weight. I mean, if they want to still fast, they need to take that before they go into fasting. But other than that, it lower your cholesterol, systolic blood pressure, improve strength, endurance, and self-discipline through physical abstention. Wow, this is wonderful, isn't it? In a short while, you will see. They don't observe according to the law. If they observe, then it will help them after Ramadan. See, if a fasting person experiences some of the hardship of the poor and hunger, it's all too easy to enjoy this, but we forget this. These children, do they complain? The food is too salty, the food is too late. They didn't, isn't it? So that is the idea of why you need to fast. And the activities during Ramadan that you see, there's meal before dawn, and breaking of the fast at sunset in a short while. Then sharing food with neighbors, relatives, friends, and the poor. And then they offer the optional prayer at the early night, which is normally known as Tarawih. Tarawih in Arabic means relaxation, pray in a relaxation. Then increase in reading of Quran during free time and optional late night prayers on the last 10 days. Some of the Muslims during these few more days are in the mosque. This is what they call it as thob in Arabic. It's a standard Arabic word for a garment. And it is a traditional Arabian clothing for men. It is sometimes spelled thob, and it is a tunic, generally long. The word is used specifically for this garment in Persian Gulf. And the word juba commonly used in Southeast Asian region. And this is what the sisters, it is a veil that covers the head and the chest, which is particularly worn by a Muslim female beyond the age of puberty in the presence of an adult male outside their immediate family. Someone that they can marry, they have to come out like that. And it can further refer to any head, face, or body covering worn by a Muslim woman that conform to a certain standard of modesty. So Islam has strongly emphasized the concept of decency, modesty in the interactions between members of the opposite sex. Again, during the breaking of fast, dates is been used. In the month of Ramadan, Muslims break their fast with date, and it is said that the Prophet would break his fast with water and odd numbers of dates. Why odd numbers? God is odd. He loves odd numbers. Simple as that. Dates are high in nutritional value and provide the body with quick energy. The celebration earlier I've mentioned, that will be the end of Ramadan, which is somewhere in this weekend. The celebration of returning to the state of purity. That is what fitrah that means. Eidul Fitri is referring to returning to the state of purity, because you have went through the cleansing in the whole month of Ramadan, which is a day of jubilation and gratitude. This festival of Eidul Fitri is celebrated by first attending mosques in the morning for the prayer, and Muslims will don their new outfits on this day. So in Singapore, the tradition of the Eid celebration is to visit relatives and friends and seek for each other for forgiveness. It may vary, as I said, from different society. Then Ramadan Mubarak is what we wish. We wish one another during the first few days in the month of Ramadan. That is a very nice way to cross into a new culture. And then Shawwal we will greet again by saying Eid Mubarak. Eid Mubarak, which means in Malay they will say Selamat Hari Raya. I think that's all for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eustace. And we do have an opportunity now, so long as Suhaimi tells me there's time.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's going to be starting at 7:18, so we have plenty of time.
How many minutes?
We have about 20 minutes before we can eat.
Remember, these people have been fasting all day. So there's time now, and I have to say first, though, I really enjoyed what Eustace has told us today. I listened to him, and I had a very wonderful discussion with him before the evening started. I learned so much in that discussion, and maybe one day you'd come back and tell us more about those differences
Sure.
you talked about there.
Yeah.
I found it particularly interesting. But we do have an opportunity now to ask questions. So, is there any questions you'd like? We don't have this opportunity very often, so please ask some questions if you have some.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for the very insightful presentation. It's not so much of a question, more of a comment.
Sure.
Especially when you mentioned that Islam and Muslim is about way of life and not so much of religion. Because this is what even some of the other religions they say, that it's a way of life and not something very scriptural in a way. So as I said, just more of a comment.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said. Yeah, that's what, yes, in the study of comparative religion, yes, Islam is not only, but we are taking from the Quran. That makes the difference, I suppose. The rest of the other religion, if they were to say, like, it is a way of life, whether that comes from God or not, and that's all. The difference is only because of the terminology that has been used. In the Quran, it uses a deen, which means that it's a way of life. I do agree with you that there are other religions that also say that it's not a religion, but it's a way of life. I don't know whether you see the difference or not.
I do. Where the source becomes
Right. Yeah. Because of the source, it is derived from an Arabic word, but unfortunately, it is because of the major language of the world today is in English. So they use it interchangeably to use the word religion. But if you go back into the source, it does not mention religion. It mentions a way of life.
Yeah, any further questions or comments?
I hope you are not shy.
Oh, they are shy, really.
Really?
Well, you can ask Ustaz anything about Islam outside Ramadan. If you've got any burning issues about Islam you want to know, feel free. We don't invite Ustaz to the campus every day. And I'm in no position to answer your question, so please do it now.
Any further questions?
So, Sami, that's a question for me. You define Islam as peaceful submission. So the word peace is very interesting because what we see in today's context globally, what is being portrayed is that Islam is not that. Why is that? Is there something wrong with the Muslims? Is it the media? Mixture of both? Any comments on it?
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes. It has to do more onto the media rather than, beside what I was discussing with Dr. Dale earlier, before you came, about the sectarian in Islam. As you know, that we have 73 sectarian, 72, and I think in most Western country you only know them as Shiite or Sunni. So this is where that create the unpleasantness that happen in any society. When you have this kind of sectarian that comes in, it will stir the peace. In reality, I don't think so. As I was also checking with Dr. Dale about Muslims in Australia, maybe what is not right there is like you cannot be comparing the Western lifestyle with Islam. You leave them alone, because the Quran has made it very clear that we are not to impose. Although in general Muslims were taught, the Quran state that the religion is for everyone. When there is a prohibition on one matter, it is also prohibited to every race by virtues, but unfortunately that is not going to happen in the modern world. So Muslims are only to impose to the Muslims to ensure that they adhere to the teaching. The peace can only be achieved if you understand the religion. If the understanding is not there, then it will create a lot of problems in the society. Like in modern society, like in the context of Singapore, we are the minority group. So which means that in Singapore context, Muslims doesn't have that right to be observing their obligation towards their religion. An example of this would be like the daily prayer, has already shown to you earlier. But if it doesn't coincide with your lunch time during working hours, then that is a problem for most of Muslims. But Islam is not as rigid as a lot of people think. This is the problems with the media. They are the one that exaggerated so many things. We had the same issue here in Singapore when Singapore Press Holding. There's a closed door conference that we had with them to appeal to the government to approach the Singapore Press Holding not to advertise anything uses the Arabic term prior checking with us. One of the example is the word jihad, because that has been unfortunately the media have done a lot of damages there in expressing, in translating that word jihad. As I just explained to you just now, jihad does not mean that we have to fight. No. Every one of us are doing, the word jihad is striving in English. You have to strive to be a better person living in a society. To every religion, they have their own rules, a set of rules that they have to adhere to. So does in Islam. They will have to follow. So there is no compulsion. There is no, there is no killing mentioned over there. It's the individual, as I said just now. If the moment they see the difference, as I was discussing with Dr. Dale earlier, like they want their own set of rules. Like in the case of Shia, just for your information, Shiites believe in only Ali, because in the majority Muslim, or rather the Sunni, they are to follow all the companions of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. They are to follow all of them. But the difference between us, Sunni and Shiites, the Shiites only take Ali. They rejected the other three of the companions of Prophet Muhammad. So that is why they are not in the mainstream. And there are many others, which has what Dr. Dale mentioned, that hopefully the next time when I am around, maybe I can share with you. So in case if you are posted out in any other Arab world, at least you know the difference between Sunni and Shiites. They are present in our society too, but very small numbers. As pointed out by Brother Swaimi, Singapore Chamber of Commerce, there's one Shiite mosque down there. The volumes is not really that, it's not in, the size is not large, smaller. Any other question?
maybe as an extension to what you said about the media over glorifying stuff. You know, the term Allah, as you mentioned in your earlier slide, it is an Arabic term. And I don't want to mention any country here, but you know, there is a country in this region that hasn't allowed, the majority hasn't allowed the minority religious groups to use the term Allah. In fact, it went all the way to the High Court. The judges, of course, decided that that it should be the word Allah should only be used by
Muslims.
Yeah. So, what's your take on that?
According to Islam, that is based on the constitutional law of that country, not Islamic law. That country, they have their own rules. They have their own set of rules, and they say it's only meant for Muslim. As I told you earlier, that this is the problem of what happened in the society. But if you move to the Arab world, if you go to the Egypt, you go to most of the Middle Eastern countries, you will find that Jews uses that word. The word Allah is not new. In fact, been used by all other religion, so to say. Particularly those who are coming from the Jews and Christian background. If you trace history, it used to be Ilah. That is being used, Ilah. And then the word Allah means Al is an indefinite sentence in Arabic. So it's actually when you translate it, that means there is the one God. I mean, in Arabic, but it is very unfortunate that that country that mentioned by Brother Swami have made their own rules. Well, this is based on the governmental system. If the majority of the government are Muslims, they may create their own rules, I suppose, and that's where it create a commotion in the society, because a different religious group find that why is it being personalized? I don't know. To my understanding of the Quran, no, the term can be used by anyone. If you want to be using that, fine. Of course, your interpretation of Allah and ours is two different things. But maybe they don't like you to be use it because you interpret in a different way. So they want to, they just want to ensure that there's no any other conflict there. So they put a stop to it. But enforcing it in that way, I think it is not practical. Should be in discussion in more liberal way. There's in many ways that we can conduct this kind of talks. That's why after that Singapore brought two prominent scholars. One is the ex-Egyptian Mufti and a bishop, I think, from Egypt, to share with our government here, to say that I suppose the same issue that they were discussing, closed door. I mean, being an IRCC member, sometimes issues like that being raised also.
Any further questions? Look, I'd just like to thank Eustace for coming here tonight, for what he's conveyed to us. I certainly have a better understanding, and I guess I would like to understand more, so you made me have an appetite to understand more. And we hope you'll come back, maybe not next year, but before next year. Before next year.
Yeah.
It's taken you 2 years to come back since the first time. So welcome back next time, and
Yes.
Please accept this as a token of our...
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. Thank you. Brother, kindly tell us about the